a musician, I know what it feels like to be involved with a project that you feel passionate about, and I'm much more inclined to do music on spec or offer up something if I believe in what's being communicated. What, in your experience, what does as a filmmaker who might be wanting to attract a relationship with a certain artist and develop that relationship, how does the term back end relate to sort of dealing with that music?
Sure. My experience with working with fellow creatives, I'll talk about non-musicians for a second. I'll talk about cameramen and makeup people and whatever. My experience is that, especially now with the democratization of the means of production, with Final Cut Pro and 5D and everything else, and democratization of the means of distribution through YouTube, Vimeo, Netflix, and everything else, not to get all Marxist. But that there are so many projects out there, there are so many startup film projects out there that people in general are willing to. They don't feel like creatives in general, I think, are getting to the point where they don't feel like they have to make a lot of money to do a job for you, but if you end up making a lot of money, they want to participate in it.
Right.
So I think that has not completely spread to the music area of this yet, and I'm not saying it should. I'm not saying it has to. I'm not preaching to musicians in the audience. But when I approach someone, be it a musician or a non-musical creative, about working for back end, that's basically how I approach it. I say, look, I'm trying to get this movie made for this amount of money, and therefore I only have this amount of money to offer you. I know that that's less than your day rate. I know that's less than your licensing fee. I know that whatever, and if we all get paid, I'm happy to have you participate in that. I'm not trying to get rich off of underpaying for your labor. I'm not trying to profit off that. At the same time, because of the good news is anybody can make a movie now. The bad news is anybody can make a movie now. And so, most of the independent filmmakers that you're going to run across, the reason that they're working at the budget level that they're working at is not so that they can make the movie for less money and then sell it for a bunch of money. The reason that they're working at the budget level they're working at is they're making a $100,000 film because they want to do a really good job with it, so that then they can get hired to do a $250,000 or a $300,000 film, and then they want to do a good job with the $300,000 so that they get a $750,000 film. And they're trying to move up to the point where they're basically trying to get exposure and build their resume, and so that's why they sometimes approach you as musicians with sort of the same kind of thought, saying, look, none of us are making money on the front end here. We're all just trying to get some exposure, and then if it pays off on the back end, let's all share in it. And I know that that's not an ideal situation for anybody concerned, including the filmmaker, but it sort of is the way it is in the current situation of what money is available for budgets for independent films. Does that answer your question at all?
Yeah, that's great. Totally.
I'd like to comment a couple things. Number one, I'm doing a couple of deals. I'm doing more and more of these deals right now where I'm doing, I'll give it a real world example. I'm doing a documentary about the emergence or the dominance of Jamaican sprinters. So these guys have a passion project. They're putting this thing together. It looks great. They think that they have a potential outlet. NBC and a couple of other networks. So they came to us, but in order to sell their product, they have to have a finished piece to give to them. By the time that it gets there and it's going to go to the Olympics, and Olympics are going to be here like that, they need to have a finished piece of product. So they can't be trying to finish it. Executives, there's no such thing as demos anymore. They want to see the finished product. People have no imagination in those positions, by the way. And you think I'm kidding? They don't. But so they want to see what it is in its entirety. So what we've done is we figured out, obviously our music has value, they like our music, they want it to be used in their film, it will help sell their film, therefore it has value. So what we've done is we've worked a deal with them that works with their budget, that allows us to go back to the people that we represent and say, hey, listen, we put your music in this film, and when it gets to that next, it's like a step-up deal. So they have a certain amount of rights that they can use this for. So they have 6 months of shopping rights because it's going to time out based off of the Olympics. So they have the right to, we know exactly where they're going to exhibit it. We know how long and where it's going. So we've built those parameters into a deal and come up with a price for them that allows them to do exactly what they need to do. And we've also pre-negotiated a deal so that when that does get picked up, that they actually pay what they should pay for something that will be broadcast on a major network. The other outside of back end that I would say what we think of is from a musician's perspective or a writer, copyright owner, is that you get paid a fee for when your music is used in a film or television or webisode or iPhone app or whatever it is. But there's also additional performance royalties that can come on top of that. So anytime any piece of music or piece of work, I'll call it, is played outside of the home, there is a royalty that's paid for it, whether you hear a song in a store or a mall or a bar, or you go to see a concert, or you hear a song on a television show, there's paid additional royalties. So sometimes a lot of the deals that we do are television deals, so we'll play songs in a TV show and we get a fee for that, and then every time that that's broadcast, we'll collect the writer and the publisher collect additional fees for that. So I consider that back end as well.
Yeah, sure.
Public performance.
I just want to add, since we're talking about that unfortunately in America there are no public performance royalties for movie theaters. There are in Europe, so if your song is in a film that plays in a movie theater in Europe, that artist gets a royalty on the back end, but that's not true in America. I don't know how it turned out that way, but it just did.
And one other additional thing is that there is no public performance fee for the actual recording. So the artists that recorded those songs don't receive royalties. So only the songwriters and the publishers. And there's only two other countries that don't pay them, and they are North Korea and Iran. Good company, huh?
Thanks, guys. This is a really interesting discussion. It kind of boils down to the monetization or the dollarization of creative, right? Whether it's film or whether it's music or a combination of the two. The two terms I heard a lot from you guys during this discussion were budget and I think I heard something of value. So the value of the budget. So my question to you guys is, how do you find, in your experience, music budgets are set, for film or for TV or for what have you? And then I want to talk about the valuation of music. I always have it in my head as this kind of real estate model. I see this beautiful house, and I'm like, wow, that's a really cool house. It has a bunch of things that I want. I think it's $500K. Simon looks at it and nothing's applicable to him, and it's maybe worth $150K. So those are the two things. Let's start with the budget. Let's start with how these budgets are set.
Music's the stepchild. We're always thought of last. Nobody budgets for us, or seldom is it budgeted properly. So a lot of times during the writing process or the editing process, somebody comes up with a really great idea and they want to use this really cool song, but by that point there's no money left. So budgeting from the production side, it's my dream when somebody comes to me and they've thought about music at the very beginning. They know what they want. That gives us money to deal with, and I promise I won't spend all your money if we don't have to. We're very aggressive negotiators, and that's the great thing about music licensing. There are no rules, although we're going to get to valuation of music in a minute. But it's all fully negotiable. So if somebody comes to me very early and they have money that we can work with, and they also have time, that is a clearance person's dream. So budgets, it all depends. Some people are very music savvy and music centric, and they will they will pay a great deal of attention to it, and they know that they want to license, and they know they want the money to be there. But then there's always the other end of the deal where it just for, either lack of preparation or a really valid creative idea that comes up last minute, there's not a lot there's not a lot of money left, and you have to work really hard to put that square peg into a round hole.
I've often heard that if you take the budget of the movie, 10% of that is generally earmarked for the music. It's just a rule of thumb that I've heard. I don't know how true that is. And I think it also has to do with the level of the person that you're working with, right? So Cameron Crowe goes to do a movie. He's pretty much known for licensing great music, so I'm sure that he's already allocating a certain budget for that. Steven Spielberg is going to hire John Williams, and I bet they haven't had a negotiation in a long time. I think they pretty much know what the hell they're doing at this point. So, but yeah, we end up in a lot of different scenarios with a lot of different television shows. We do a lot of rescuing. We do a lot of, what will happen in a typical scenario is they'll get a film, they'll shoot it all, give it to the editor, they'll take it to the edit suite, and they'll put in music, the temp music in, they put temporary tracks in that will give them the feel and look that they want. They're not actually going to ever be able to use those songs. They may have some budget and have some key scenes that, that's the only song that'll work. But a lot of times they'll come to me with a list of stuff that they need to replace. So they'll say, we need something. I recently got called by Tyler Perry's people that said, we have a scene here and we have Alicia Keys Fallen in it, and we are not going to license Alicia Keys Fallen because it's probably a $60,000, $70,000 license that they're going to do.
It depends. I get paid to say those two words a lot. It depends.
Right.
Whether or not it's expensive.
So that we find that scenario a lot.
So as somebody who got into this industry to represent content creators, in the music industry, I always feel really sick to my stomach when people ask to use music without paying for it. I've seen some stepped up deals where it will say, okay, you give us the music for free now, and if the movie grosses, X number of dollars, then we'll pay you. And I understand why some filmmakers do that, but to me that shows that they don't value the music. And then it's really up to the musician or the artist or the songwriter to decide if that's the kind of relationship they want to have with that particular person. I figured if you've got a $100,000 movie, 10% of that is $10,000. I mean, some of that's got to be, you have to pay for the intellectual property that you want to incorporate into your film. That's where I stand. At the end of the day, it's the musician's choice to make. But even if somebody were to just offer $50 to use 10 seconds of a song, it's like, okay, at least they're showing a good faith effort to show that they value the music and how it contributes to their finished product. So those are some things to think about for both the musician and for the filmmaker.